From the very beginning, it was the statement, in the beginning, Elohim created the universe and man and all these things. And we too were created for the purpose of becoming Elohim. As Jesus himself said, I said, you're Elohim, quoting Psalms 82, verse 6. So there is no contradiction. And you have to think the same thing that he does from his point of view. And from his point of view, you get the point. But when you come to the German God, you don't understand it. So you don't understand the concept of Elohim if you go to the German God. But if you go to the Hebrew concept, Elohim, plural, could be two, could be five, could be many. That's exactly what Christ said. The purpose he created men to make them Elohim in the spirit. Now they're in the flesh, Elohim. They have the potential to become in the spirit Elohim. So it's a different concept. So the world confuses the concepts. And this is where the confusion comes. This is where the confusion comes of the Trinity, understanding of the Trinity in terms of God. When you say God, you miss the point already because he's Elohim. He's in the plural. And he makes his children also Elohim from the beginning of life. He created them for that purpose. And that's why you have to reorient your mind and think in Hebrew, not think in English or German or any other language, because you're going to miss the point. That's the whole controversy. The purpose of man is from the beginning that was stated. Let us, not let me, let us, the two Elohim, create man in our image and in our likeness. In that statement, he was already saying the plan of salvation. That we are going to create human beings that will become Elohim in the spirit. Now they're Elohim in the flesh. They have to be raised and educated in a certain way, which is the way of life, not the way of death that leads nowhere but to death, but in the way of life, and obey the law of life. And that law will guide them and teach them and educate them in the ways that God thinks and feels and does all kinds of things. And when they master that, they become Elohim in the spirit. He gives them the divinity. It comes only from God. He's Elohim. He's the master of the universe. He's all things. Without him, we cannot accomplish anything. We cannot breathe without him. We cannot eat without him. We do all things by the creation that he created. And when man understands that, and he walks in his way, in his path, in his commandments and precepts and statutes and judgments, he's becoming a spiritual Elohim. But when he refuses that way, he's derailed. Jesus Christ said it very plainly. Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood. He was talking spiritually about the law of God. When you obey it, you walk in it, you abide by every precept and judgment and statutes that he gave in Sinai, then you will be Elohim. And the end of the process, as John said, 1 John, that when we shall see him, we will be exactly like him. What does that mean? We will be Elohim, like him. Because you travel the route and walk at the path and follow his footsteps, and then you reach the destination. when you become fully fledged Elohim. Now we are not. We're physical flesh. We're created in the image of God, as it said in Genesis 1:26. God created, to begin with, man in his image and his likeness. So the end of the process, when we mature, obeying his commandments and statutes and judgments and precepts and testimonies, not only have the faith, but obey, walk the walk, not talk the talk. Most people just talk the talk, but they do not want to obey. The thing is a foreign thing. I don't have to do it. How can you reach the potential if you don't want to do it? So it's only when you are being called to walk in a way of life, that's when you begin to eat the flesh and drink the blood of Christ, who is the split image of God, of Elohim, like his Father. You've seen the Father, you've seen the Son, you've seen the Son, you've seen the Father. But how would you be able to have the image of the Father if you don't have the image of the Son? You're not willing to walk in his path. You're not eating the flesh and drink the blood, which made of the teachings of God, from Genesis to Revelation. All of them. They have to walk in the footsteps of Christ. In other words, you have to walk in his path. Unless you do, you are not of his. So you proceed from A, and then you end up with Z at the end of the road. You have to travel every step and follow every step of his and walk in his footsteps. If it goes on the Sabbath to worship God, you go on the Sabbath. It goes on the holidays to worship God, you go on the holidays. But his holidays, not the world's holidays. Not the world's law, the law of the flesh. You have to walk in the law of the Spirit. You have to follow his footsteps. Man shall live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Elohim, of the Father. He obeyed his Father's commandments. He couldn't be a sacrifice without spots and blemishes unless he obeyed the law of his Father in fullness. He followed it. So must we follow in his footsteps and obey his commandments, the commandments of the Father, which are the same exactly, the commandments of the Son. And that's what he told us. Unless you follow me, you will have no life in you. There's no other way to reach Elohim status but by following him every step of the way.